Hi everyone, on this episode of Cooking with Cricket, I'm going to show you how I make my cornbread dressing. So let's get started. First of all, you'll need to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Then I'm going to bake mine in a 13 by 9 inch pan that I've greased with butter. You can grease it with whatever, but I think butter's best for this. You're going to need 1/2 cup of finely chopped onion. You can add more if you want to, or you can even leave the onion out. You're going to need some chicken broth, 1 can of cream of chicken soup, some celery flakes. You do not have to add this. If you want to add fresh celery, you can add about 1/2 cup of the fresh celery. And you're going to need some sage, and if you want to leave this out, that's fine. I have made it before without sage, and my mother-in-law will make 2 pans, one with sage and one without. And then you're going to need some cornbread. I pre-made my cornbread this morning, and while I was setting it out to cool, I went to the store to pick up a few things and came back and seen that my son had taken out a piece of it, but that's fine. So, and I'll give a link to my cornbread recipe in this video. And you'll need a couple of eggs, and I get my eggs from my mom and my stepdad. They raise chickens. First, just take and crumble up your cornbread. You don't have to get it real fine or anything. If you want to, go ahead and pre-bake your cornbread. Say if you're going to have cornbread dressing for Thanksgiving or an outing or anything. My mom, and I do too, if I'm making cornbread for dinner one night and have any left over, I wrap it up real good and I freeze it. Or for Thanksgiving, a week or two before, I go ahead and cook up my cornbread, let it cool, and freeze it, so that way it's already ready. And on my basic cornbread recipe, I usually double it for this. Alright, I have my cornbread crumbled up. As you can see, there's still some chunks in it, and that's fine. First, I'm going to add my seasoning in here and get it mixed up real good. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. You can use regular salt. Remember, your chicken broth is going to have some salt in it too. I like a lot of black pepper in mine, but you might not like as much. So I add about a teaspoon of that too. Like I say on the sage, you can leave this out. You can add in as little as much as you want. I usually do not add that much sage. But for this, I'm going to add 1/2 tablespoon. On the celery flakes, I'm only going to add 1 tablespoon of that. If you want to leave that out, that is fine. If you want to use fresh celery, just add, maybe a couple of stalks, chopped fine. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of paprika. You do not have to add the paprika. And I always have to add my parsley flakes. I cook a lot with that. And I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of that. And this too is optional. I add just a little bit of crushed red pepper. It, to me, just gives it just a little bit. It doesn't make it hot or spicy or anything. It just gives it a little bit of better flavor. I'm only going to add 1/4 teaspoon. just kind of mix all that up to get it incorporated real good. Now I'm going to add my half cup of chopped onion. And I chop that as fine as I can get it because my kids, which are teenagers now, doesn't really like onion in it. But to me, if I don't have onions, sometimes I add a little bit of onion powder. And I always chop my vegetables up extra fine because we don't like eating it and getting like a big bite of onion or something like that, but that's just up to your preference. And then add your 1 can of cream of chicken condensed soup. I got this part from my friend Tammy, who made me dressing one time for Thanksgiving, and it was so good, and that's what she told me that she added. And ever since then, that's what I've added to mine. And then on your chicken broth, it's really going to be hard to tell how much you're going to have to add because some days you might need more, some days you might need less. So I'm going to start off with 1 can, and I'll measure that out in cups as I'm doing it. So far, I've added 4.5 cups of chicken broth. And this is about the consistency that you want it. Now right here before I add the eggs is where I would taste it to check it for seasoning. And when I was growing up, I always preferred the raw dressing better than the cook. So my mom would always let me be the taste tester, and I'd get me a big old bowl of it. If you don't want to taste it at this point, that's fine. To me, it just needs just a little bit more salt. For my eggs, I take and crack them open in a separate little bowl, beat it real good, and then add it to it. Alright, just mix it very good at this point when you add the beaten eggs in. Just pour it into your prepared baking dish. If you want to go ahead and get it to this point, cover it up, place it in the refrigerator, and then bake it when you're ready, that's fine. When I make this for Thanksgiving, I always get it to this point on Wednesday, wrap it up real good, put it in the refrigerator, and then just take it out when I get ready to bake it. But place this in a preheated 375 degree oven, and I will tell you how long it took me to bake it, because different times it's going to vary on each person's stove, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, our cornbread dressing is done. I actually cooked mine at 400 degrees. I think that I might have said 375, but it was actually 400. And I always kind of take a fork and go in there and make sure that it's not still real soupy, but you don't want it real dry either, and that it's good and warm. So mine cooked for an hour, 60 minutes. And yours might cook less time or a little bit longer. But then I take mine out, set it on a rack, and let it cool for about 10-15 minutes before we dig in. I hope you enjoy it.